So, time for the epic conclusion, complete with a sandstorm coming. Again, no real joke here.
Yeah. This will be the last thing we get Prince of Persia related for a while, not counting anything that's like on spin-off material like the DS
Well,
games.
at least for the Sand Saga, I'm still gonna have to take a look at some point. Yeah, don't worry, this is another horde mod. I still will have to take a look at some point at the Battles of Prince of Persia game, since again, apparently it's canon and supposedly explains better why the prince becomes super angsty before War Within. So I'm definitely curious to see the transition, if present.
And let's not forget the Wii ports apparently also being canon.
The Wii and DS. I'm dreading more the DS one because you have to understand this is kind of like a teaser, more like in what I'm saying right now. The DS Prince of Persia video games have terrible controls because, being on a Nintendo system, they were subjected on forced gimmicky control, basically using the touchpad for everything. Imagine having to do a platformer using the touchpad as your only control method.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of Sonic Chronicles. Now I know what you're gonna think, but Jova, Sonic Chronicles is an RPG game. Yes, it's an RPG game with platforming elements that requires you to do everything with the touchscreen. In a Sonic game.
Wasn't there a Metroid game on the DS that
Prime Hunters,
yeah.
Okay.
I haven't played it, and it was more focused on multiplayer for some reason.
To be fair to Metroid Prime Hunters, though, that being made by Nintendo themselves, kind of had a better idea of how to integrate that stuff. And it was kind of... And let's not forget, with Metroid Prime, the name of the game is first person, so it makes sense that you spend a lot of time aiming, and well, since the DS did not have
I know, Joe, but here's the
analog,
thing, it still kind of makes it awkward, both with the DS and the 3DS. That's why games like Kid Icarus Uprising unfortunately have that kind of stigma, because unfortunately, no matter how the control scheme you choose, your hands are gonna have to, gonna cramp after a while.
Oh yes, as someone who's finally gotten the honor of
It's really
playing
a
that
shame,
game.
honestly, because I really like Kid Icarus Uprising. I'm still hoping for a sequel at some point, but, well, considering what Sakurai is doing right now and how he's really attached to his project, I'm not hoping anytime soon.
Mr. Sakurai, can you please take time out of your ever-busy schedule with Smash freaking Ultimate to please make a sequel to Kid Icarus?
When you're not hooked up to an IV, that is.
And while you're at it,
yeah.
And while they're at it, re-release the first one at this point.
Okay. That's one thing I don't get. Like, well, okay, I can get his insistence to not do a sequel, but his insistence to not remaster or port Kid Icarus Uprising to the Switch.
To be fair, that would be more up to Nintendo than him. Nintendo can just get a developer who could make a proper remaster. If they
It's confusing because
they could get Tantalus to make it like they did for other projects like Twilight Princess HD and stuff like that.
It's confusing because Sakurai was the one who was interviewed about possibly making a remaster and said apparently no go on that. It's weird to tell who's calling the shots with that game, seeing as how, let's not forget.
Yeah, also to remember that Sakurai, due to the success of his product, Sakurai is very influential, so Nintendo prepares to listen to what he says. Contradict. Remember, when he
It is exactly what your brother said.
You know, people really need to learn that ancient demonic beings aren't really going to play ball with them.
Just wait until the Dahaka Prince, don't worry.
God, the Dahaka.
But what they said, remember, according to interviews, when Sakurai exposed to the meeting for creating Smash Ultimate, that he wanted every single veteran character that already appeared in the game, the entire room was in silence for at least a minute, because they didn't know what to think and how to respond to him.
And yet, despite the absurdity of such a notion...
They just couldn't say no to him.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And believe it or not, they had to twist some arms, I wonder who that could be, to get it to happen, but Lord knows they got it to happen, and with some interest, too. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think we're actually really close. This last series of platforming, as you can see, combine all of your skills, although there's not much water to freeze. And the horde modes basically are a joke since your sword is a one-hit kill property. So there we go. But yeah, like I mentioned, the journey. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I think this is the
Oh,
last
goody,
climb.
more birds. That means it's time to homing attack.
Yeah.
More bird. Oh no, that. In order for it to be John, we'd have to be ducks, something.
Hey kids, you wanna try to make a room difficult but you don't know how? Just spawn some enemy spawners all over the place and force the players to catch on them. Again, the fact that I have a one-hit kill sword makes things much easier, at least for the minor enemies. With the giant ones, as you can see, it gives away chunks of the health. But still, it can become very, tiring on the long run.
I think the weird thing is like, well, okay, at this point, people clearly did not like when they overdid it with the enemies, hence why they went back on that in 2 Thrones. So why did they bring it back here by this
Because
point?
they actually did something else with it that I am okay with the upgrade system, the different kind of powers. They did actually trick. The problem is that unfortunately they didn't move around it in a sense of having having enough enemy variety or a long enough game to kind of justify the so many combat situations. Unfortunately, that's like you have to remember also the original Prince of Persia, the very first one, the one
The
that
side-scroller one, I believe.
Exactly, it did define side scrollers, and it was an inspiration for a lot of games like Abe's Odyssey, for example, in its structure. But one of the things that he did, and he managed to do it right, was the combat. It wasn't as big as you would imagine. It was entirely focused on the side-scrolling part and the avoiding trap, but it was still present, and it was a perfect swashbuckling simulator, having to dance against the enemy and predicting their movements and defeating them. So I can still understand why a developer like Ubisoft would still wanted to incorporate combat in some kind of fashion. But you could try to go around it. Like I know that it's.
You'll have to get to higher ground if you want to find Ratash. Otherwise, you'll just keep fighting
Huh.
the army to no purpose.
Like we did just now.
That tower, is it tall enough?
Huh.
Let's hope so.
Well, no Rapunzel inside, if you ask. But or Fiona, might as well.
Or Sleeping Beauty.
Well, Sleeping Beauty wasn't really in the highest tower. I don't remember.
Yeah, she is in most versions of the fairy tale. At the highest room in the tallest tower. It's kind of how it goes for a lot of princesses.
Yeah, that's what Shrek parodies with that. Yeah.
You know what they should do?
What?
Yeah.
Get some of that anti-paint, some anti-glide paint. They won't stand the chance again.
So you see, yeah, Dweebs, it's kind of like the Nega version of the ledges painted yellow that you find always in video games these days, that sign up the things that you can climb.
No, what I mean is, if they don't want people getting the princess at the top of this, just buy some anti-climb paints the whole tower with it.
I mean, remember, Dweebs, aside from using her hair, in at least the original version of the tale, in most of them, the Tower of Rapunzel is unclimbable as a result.
True.
And yet they climbed it and you managed to climb it anyway. In fact, even better, just say, oh, by the way, don't bother using rope. Don't bother using your hair as a rope because I barricaded the doors, the windows with bars.
What will happen when we get outside? But I think we are expected.
So there.
Basically, more.
They are. I have officially ruined Tangle.
Yeah, one problem though. You can still climb using the hair though.
Yeah, but how are you going to get through the window if it's barred?
You have a sword.
Bring tools. I mean, remember.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that by the time he's close to chipping the bar, that whoever's looking after the tower will come and go, hello.
Well, that depends, Dwebs. Are we talking movie Tangled or TV show Tangled? Or the franchise in general? Tangled in general. Well, let's just say that there's a specific song that Rapunzel could sing that will destroy those bars. I'm not going to say which.
I mean,
Didn't we see that episode?
true, but she doesn't know at that point yet.
No, well, that's why I said I'm not gonna say anything aside from that.
No. What I mean is that it's a thing that happens in season 2, and by that time the tower is being completely destroyed due to events in season 1. So
I guess.
So yeah,
Sure,
there we are.
I guess.
Prince of Persia, Part 11, Dwibs Ruins Tackled.
So, Tio, I was
sorry,
actually...
I'm not titling with that. But no, what I was saying before was, I know it sounds a bit cliche by being said like this, but maybe trying to go the Dark Souls route in a sense of having a or Sekiro, or a more recent example, having the combat focus on the agility of the prince and its acrobatic movements, similar to what he can do right now, but putting more emphasis onto that. The reboot kind of tries to go through that direction, but there are some problems tied to it, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Again, I think I foreshadowed it enough.
I said it once and I'll say it again, though. What they really ought to do is incorporate the parkour much more into the combat that they have. I mean, yeah, technically you can, but it's more of a superficial thing. Like, actually make it so that it's a productive thing, Incorporate parkour into the combat. Kind of like what the original side-scrollers did, now that I think about it.
Yep.
Speaking of which, Tio, I take it you want to record the side-scrolling games at some point?
The thing is, Jova, I'm not sure which version should I be trying, and there's also the fact that only the first one and the second one were remade. The first one was for PS3 and Xbox 360. I don't think there was a Steam port. And the second one was mobile only. They didn't even try to redo Prince of Persia 3D even. So it's a bit all over the place.
Maybe it's for the best they didn't try to redo
maybe.
3D because 3D sucks.
It would probably be the original DOS versions. Let me check.
Maybe the Amiga port? I don't know.
One thing I never got is, again, Ubisoft's tendency to try and do Prince of Persia stuff without the original creator, even when the original creator is perfectly fine in there to use. Like...
Well, not for nothing, but the original creator was involved in the movie.
Well, that's a movie. I'm talking about games, though. It's like, well, when they tried doing games without the original creator, well, first time, there was Prince of Persia 3D. It sucked. Then they tried Warrior Within. It sucked. Then the reboot. It sucked.
Well, this game doesn't have the original creator involved either.
True, yeah, but it's not okay, like we said before,
I mean, it's the best of, arguably it's the best of the ones not involved in the original creator, but unfortunately, like I said, it's still not as impressive or memorable.
Yeah. In fact, what was the original creator doing at the time of this game anyway?
I don't remember. I think it was yeah. No, remember the movie. This was done as a sort of promotion also for the movie.
Wait.
Yeah,
I thought the reboot was done as promotion for the movie.
No, the reboot was in 2008. This was 2010.
Oh, shoot. I keep forgetting that movie was in 2010 and not 2008.
I mean, props to Ubisoft to not make a straight-up, adaptation of a movie, and instead, following what they wanted with the Sand Saga. But hold on, I think it's about time to confront. Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah, and accumulate mass, it seems. Excuse me, pardon me, out of the way, sir.
I am swarming mass of bodies before we reach the storm. Seriously,
Slicey time.
Wow.
Like, seriously, we're not even trying to deny it is basically Dynasty Warriors.
Pretty much.
Except not as flashy.
Yeah. Hey, that's actually a neat use. Bop. Bop.
I think there's also a trophy if you jump on enough enemies. I actually did manage to platinum this game the first time I played it, but it's been a while. It's actually really easy to platinum compared to the others.
Prince of Persia was filmed in front of a live audience.
Again.
A thing that's for rarity these days, at least around here, unless it's Red Dwarf.
Depends.
Filming comedies in front of a live audience, I mean...
Well, I don't know. Anyway, what I was saying, for example, about what I proposed, what I thought could be a good idea for Prince of Persia. For Honor, and yes, Pete?
I'm checking here the various versions of the original Prince of Persia. One of them was the TurboGrafx 16 version was done by Riverhill Soft.
Huh.
I think I heard what we did.
Riverhill Soft was the company that Hino left with a massive other developers to found Level 5.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
They made the Overblood games back on the PS1. So that's interesting. From what I'm seeing here, too, apparently the most faithful of the console versions is the Sega CD version, because the Super Nintendo.
It's more up your alley, technically.
The Super Nintendo, the Super Nintendo version, is good, but it did a lot of changes from the original. Okay?
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
Basically, when it comes to playing a faithful console port, but at the same time with enhanced music and shit, the Sega CD version seems to be the best option for what I'm
Yet
seeing.
again.
Oh, no, that's the thing too. For as much flack as people like to give the Sega CD because of the FMV shit, if you take away the FMV shit, the Sega CD actually had plenty of great versions of games and even some great original stuff as well. The problem is that Sega only marketed the FMV stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Not to mention, again, it was really a poor marketing decision, similar to what happened eventually to the Saturn. Again, to have another golden goose on their end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the best.
Oh, look at that! A long ending hallway, right down to the final boss. Okay, maybe not.
From what
Yes,
I could
Louisa.
tell, the best the Saturn had were a couple of mediocre Sonic games, and a Shinobi game with a soundtrack so bland they had to redo it.
There were something
Hey,
else.
hey,
with
hey!
the
It had
Panzer
Burning
Dragoon.
Rangers on it, so it's blessed for
That
that.
too. The Knights, Panzer Dragoon. If you want to consider also, if you want to consider also the not localized stuff, Sakura Wars technically, and if we want to get very technical, there's Deep Fear, an horror game that was localized only for Europe.
Huh. Dear Sega, please localize the first 4 Sakura Wars games, by the way.
Anyway,
What's that? What's that? You wanted in Smash? Okay.
final boss time, and it's about time to float on some platformers, I guess.
Wait. So now we're in the climax of
No, it's not
Bayonetta.
Sonic and the Secret Rings, Pedro.
No. Actually, it reminds me more of the climax of Uncharted 3. Actually.
I was gonna say it reminds me of the opening stage from Bayonetta 2.
I'm not seeing that. There were no hallucination involved and no quicksand.
I mean right at the end where we're going for all the falling rocks and shit.
I have.
Or even better. Oh, okay, how about this? Well, the climax of Paranorman, because this is taking place during
I haven't seen the movie yet.
It's the movie that Leica made before Kubo went into the store.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
no,
I
I forgot. There was Box Trolls. I always forget Box Trolls exists because it's so forgettable.
I like Box Trolls.
Anyway,
It's not a bad movie, but it's just so generic compared to their other movies, which are so creative. But go ahead.
no, the boss fight is multi-phased. Sometimes you have to fight these hordes of enemies before reaching the boss. But you can see you have to hop from platform to platform until you reach him, and you can actually give some damage. If you look at the design, the new design of Ratash, you're probably already seeing what's the weak spot to attack. Unfortunately, the whole jumping, due to how the homing attack is structured, the whole jumping between platform to platform is very scripted, unfortunately. It really gives a vibe that, we're giving you so many freedoms to choose the platform to reach the final boss, but no, it's just, very linear. There he is. And there he goes. Now, with the sliding added to it, because the platforms are, on obliquo in that kind of way, it gives a more urgency to it, because you cannot, tiptoeing around, so at least it's not like super easy. But at the same time, again, I mean, we've fought so many enemies just to get here, even in the final stretch, even with the Infinity +1 sword, and we're still doing this, even for the final boss battle. I'm pretty sure, considering the size of Ratash, it could find a way to, make the boss fight not involving flunkies. But again, when it comes to final bosses in combat, the Prince of Persia franchise hasn't been great so far.
Again, except for the side scrollers, I think I recall.
I guess. Well, I mean, for the Sand Saga, I guess the fight against the Vizier at the end of Two Thrones is a bit better because it incorporates more the acrobatic elements. And it gives you actual freedom in order to get to the boss fight, to the boss, but it still contains cheap elements due to the unblockable attacks. But the boss chugs at you from time to time. So unless you know where to position yourself, it's like a crapshoot. And just to say, both Kylene and the Haken were within our god awful. Truly a reflection of what the combat is in that game. The first Brazier in the first place of in the sense of time is
this section looks like it's really easy.
Yeah. No, the Vizier in the first in the sense of time is extremely mad because of how unrefined the combat was for that game, and that out of nowhere they expect you a more competent boss fight at the end.
I just realised.
What?
After we do these two games, are we gonna have to do the movie?
Well, we could have done the movie at any time because it's based on Sands of Time, supposedly.
I mean, we're probably gonna come.
The movie was so boring, I couldn't even finish it.
Anyway, actual final boss time. I wonder where the big spot is.
I wonder.
Maybe it's
you might as well put. You might as well. Yeah, it's like in Microcosm. You might as well put a sign saying, "It here, you dumb fuck."
I mean, it's not an eye, so I guess it's a bit better than the average Zelda games in terms of saying the weak spot, but still.
What even are we fighting here? I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Again, it's Ratash being grown up.
I know.
It's supposed to be a hybrid between the Ifrit. Honestly, I kind of preferred Ratash original design.
Yeah.
The first
Exactly.
Ifrit design.
Exactly. That's what I meant.
This seems poison ivy fused with sand.
I know. It's like, well, I mean, that's why I was asking what even is. It's like, I know who it is. It's just the design leaves a lot to be desired.
I get the idea that we need to make the final boss bigger in scope, to escalate things up. But it could have made it a bit more appeasing to the eye.
Just have him be what he looks like, only bigger. Like what a lot of genies tend to do.
Phenomenal cosmic powers
interesting things.
Yes, Pedro?
Interesting thing that I found here too. The British developer Dumark, who made Marco's Magic Football, they made the Sega Master System, Game Gear, and Amiga ports of Prince of Persia.
Oh.
So, however, from what I'm seeing here, they're apparently very bad. They butchered the game a lot.
Oh gee,
So-
what a shock! A game on
surprise
the
me.
oh gee, what a shock! A game on the Amiga turning out very badly.
Oh well, so avoid the British-made ports, I guess. But yeah, from what I'm seeing here, basically from what I'm seeing here from this guy on NeoGAF 2 is that the best version would be just to use DOSBox to emulate the original version for that good old music-free atmosphere, that the original had. However, if for some reason you can't, or you would rather have something with more music in it and a bit higher production values, emulate the Sega CD version. Either one of those two.
Is that just the original one, or all the side scrollers?
No, that's just the original. I'm gonna check too now.
The Sword and the Flame, I think, had a less release, less expanded release. And 3D was like even less, considering how radically changed it was.
That's the basic consensus from this guy. This guy basically describes all the versions and says the Super Nintendo version is amazing, but it's not the original game. It's basically an entire new game. Might as well.
A port on the Super Nintendo that butcher things up somehow. I never saw that one.
Well, it's not so much that it butchers, it's more so the fact that
it's the same thing with the Mortal Kombat and the Doom ports on Super Nintendo.
Okay, Pedro, do they actually omit it, or is it like a completely different game?
It's a different game based on the same concept. It has different level design.
Basically, Trevor, if you don't know, the story of the first game of the first Prince of Persia is extremely simple. Princess in danger, Vizier is evil, you have a time limit, go get her. Easier as part.
To give you an idea, from what I understand, Joe, but the Super Nintendo version, despite still having the same basic gameplay concepts, like the overall structure and level design is radically different. It's not even trying to emulate the original game.
Here we go.
Wait, that's how we beat him? Well, I mean, I know that was obviously his weak point.
Not
but
even a QTE, you just give me a cutscene finisher.
after homing attacking off of one of his enemies that he idiotically places right above him. Huh.
Alright, time to see the ending.
Well, all's well that ends well. Ooh.
Hi, Malik.
Hey, Malik, your entire kingdom is now entrenched in sand. But hey, at least now people can be free.
Yeah, the curse of the genes is broken.
Lord knows we're gonna have a lot of repair work to do, though, and dig the city out of the
Well,
sand.
no, remember, Jova, the city was already broken when we got here. It was a ruined city.
I could feel it taking over my body, but I could not
Of
stop
course.
it. I was a prisoner.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Malik,
His face is so
I'm
derpy.
sorry. I didn't.
I am the one who should be sorry. I did not listen.
It's weird because the facial structure for the Assassin's Creed 2 video game wasn't this bad.
My guess is this game didn't have as much of a budget, maybe.
Hey,
Possible.
brother,
It's too
I
late
don't
for
mean
me.
to press, but where are your wounds
tell
that you were
our
supposedly
father.
dying from?
It's internal, Jova.
I'm sorry, but we're trying to keep the rating as family friendly as possible.
Himself.
And dead.
Malik, no!
And that's it.
Eh.
Wait,
No.
what?
There is a small epilogue, more narration epilogue from the prince at the end, but that's it. Also, yeah, I had to speed up because this game and the reboot have, for some reason, extremely long credits. I know considering everything, our fan thoughts and everything, I probably should have kept that of the original length, but fuck it, I'm just putting Sly Cooper music. Dweebs, you go first, it's in the shortest. Dweebs? Oh, he's burped.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pedro, might as well.
It sounds about on par with the others from what I'm seeing here. I mean, it doesn't. Again, not really being an expert on the modern PS. I only played the original back in the day, so I'm not really. As far as I can tell, this seems about on par with the other games that came before it, between Sands of Time and the other. I mean, obviously there's obvious stuff like War Within is terrible and stuff. But when it comes to comparing this to something like, say, Sands of Time or Two Thrones, it seems to be about on par. What I'm seeing here, the combat seems like it looks better from what I'm seeing here. But the overall gameplay, from what I can tell, seems to be basically more the same, which I guess is fine. It's not, and that's basically it. It's not particular. I don't find it to be particularly memorable, but it's at the same time, it looks like a solid game. So there's not that much. The music is fine. The graphics, despite some derpy shit, is fine. That's it. It's another Prince of Persia game. Regardless of how good these games may be to fans like Theo, I have done particularly nothing against these games. They look fine. I can kind of see why this series kind of stopped being. Did this game sell at all?
Yeah,
It's
but
sold
again,
well,
not enough.
But yeah, the problem is like, well, it didn't reach the.
Ubisoft really wanted to relaunch with the reboot first, and it didn't pay off. So they wanted to relaunch with this, and it didn't pay off as much as they wanted. So they basically just stopped. Honestly, if 2019, still have to happen, but I'm not betting anything right now. But I'm honestly thinking we're just waiting. They did, like I said, mention that they have possible plans for the franchise in one of the interviews. But again, I'd rather just wait right now. I really guess it's better if we do nothing rather than fucking up. But anyway, before we continue, final epilogue narration.
The sands disappeared as if the storm had never happened, though it left its mark in the crumbling stone of
So what's the kingdom gonna do without its prince now?
Well, the king is still there.
The sword where it had fallen
Remember,
from
the father was
Ratash's body.
retconned at the end of the first game.
The metal was cold in my hands.
Okay.
Hold
I
on.
spoke Razia's name.
And yes, Razia
There was
died.
no answer.
Oh, that sucks.
Wah, wah.
It's even a narration, like not even showing in a
It
cutscene.
seemed right that Razia should be left in the city she
I don't
called
mind the
home.
artwork.
It's fine, but the problem is
Could not
that
bear to keep the sword with
it's
me.
rushed and it shows.
With the
Oh,
city
you
secure
left it in the hands of his advisors
I
because.
begin the most
Oh,
difficult
okay,
task
I know.
of all.
Obviously, for this story, they're not evil,
must
but
return to
really, that's
And
it.
tell our
this
father
is
what has
partially why the prince starts becoming angsty, because with his brother's death, the father, the king, becomes a bit, starts having some animosity. This also explains why the prince was so eager to find back his father as soon as possible in Two Thrones, because kind of also wanted to apologize for this. And as we turned out, unfortunately, it ended up in tragedy. However, as we know, at the end of of Warrior Within, none of this is important because it was retconned back to life again. So technically speaking, Malik supposedly is alive. So this ending is kind of pointless at this point, like I mentioned. But go on, Waves.
So yeah, typical. I burped for just a few minutes to get a drink, and when I get back, the game's over.
Yeah, well, the ending was incredibly abrupt.
Yeah, that
Anyway,
was abrupt.
If
Yeah.
you have anything to add, Pedro?
Well, I don't know what happened. What happened in the ending?
Basically,
Malik
Dwebs,
dies.
allow me to recap the ending for you, Dwebs. Spock dies. Khan! There you go.
Camera panning. Yeah, not even kidding. The game ends with a camera pan. Like, remember this when you commented on The Mummy Returns, and there's that moment where, Brendan Fraser's wife dies, and we thought you think it would be like the ending of the movie because the camera pans out. Yeah, they do that like here, except it really is the ending.
So
Anyway.
who died?
Malik, that after freeing him from the gene, despite his mind control, the wounds were still too much.
And also, see any wounds. But I digress.
Oh, so it's like that part on the Saw video game.
Java, it's like Angel in Crisis Core, Clone the Generation.
All right, can I go first on my final thought?
Pedro was already going. If you have anything to add?
At the same, like I said, I can kind of see why most people now, a lot of gamers nowadays seem to forget about these games because these games, while fine on their own, they don't seem to be particularly extremely all that memorable, at least from a general standpoint. I mean, obviously, if you enjoy these kinds of games, and I do enjoy these kinds of games, you'll have some fun with them, but it's not like they're these also great games that stick with you or anything. They're fun on their own, but I mean, Sands of Time is okay. Warrior Within is garbage. Two Thrones was at the very least a return to form, and this one just seems to be more on par. But at the same time, the series, at least from my perspective, doesn't seem to really elevate to a true state of greatness. It just tries to reach a good solid state of good and good enough, and never really rises up. And I can understand that why some people would just forget about them, because there's not that much memorability in these games. They're fine for what they are. It's just that there's better games in this genre to play. I mean, God of War, I can see is much more memorable compared to something like this. I mean, I know it's not exactly the same genre, but I can detect some similarities sometimes. And I think God of War helps because it has such a much more rich mythos and storyline compared to something like this. So I can understand why, unlike God of War, this franchise was kind of forgotten by a lot of gamers. But it's still technically a sad thing because it started off, the original Prince of Persia is still a classic. But I think these games completely diluted the original vision, and I think maybe if there was to be a new Prince of Persia game, I think an attempt to try to do a side scroll that tries to recreate the original but modernize it would be a better choice rather than try to go back to this style, because this style at this point has been done a lot of times, and I think a return to the original gameplay would be a nice change of pace for this franchise, I would argue.
Maybe with the UbiArt engine.
Nah, silly tale. That would require Ubisoft to remember that the UbiArt engine exists. So yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
Leaves.
Yeah, I'm gonna call what Pedro said, to be honest. This is just a really average series of games from what I've seen. I mean, the gameplay looks solid, but the story isn't really all that engaging. If I'm honest, I mean, wow, the The prince is jumping around doing stuff because, yay. Plus they do funny lines sometimes. Again, if I wanted that, I'd watch an MCU movie. And even then, even though as mixed as I am on the MCU, I mean, they do it better. And I mean, again, the music isn't really all that memorable. It's sad that, in my opinion, the only music that's even slightly memorable is if they try to go all grunge angsty. So yeah, actually, in that case, I can kind of see why Ubisoft have kind of just abandoned this series in favor of some of their more other ones, because this one isn't really all that interesting.
Anyway, you're done?
Yeah, overall, it's just not that great.
Jova.
Yeah, I like these games, but when it comes to the 3D era Prince of Persia, I don't want to say it doesn't hold up to the side-scrollers, but man, Prince of Persia as a side-scroller series was definitely phenomenal and revolutionary. And, you know what, to its credit, when the Prince of Persia games first came out, they kind of were, introducing parkour and 3D platforms and every now and then. And that's one thing. Well, that's one thing 1, 3, and 4 maintained. 2 was its own mess. But yeah, let me speak about this game specifically. This game feels decent, but that's just it, decent. It feels like it has a lot of good things going for it, but it has a lot of stuff hindering it that keeps it from being amazing. Again, they have better and tighter controls, but there's a lot more scripting. They have a better grasp on combat, though there are times where they overdo it. They have a better grasp on power-ups, though you don't always really get to use them because some of them tend to be situational and others just you need to use them to get the game moving along well enough. The game has a good enough pace, except for the parts where it grinds to a halt, mainly because of either combat or an arbitrary goal or whatnot. It's a weird, messed up balance of sorts. Very messed up. The story here, well, okay. I think I've noticed a formula with a lot of the 3D Prince of Persia games, reboot notwithstanding. The story starts off promising, but then you get to that point in the middle point where, the story bits start to get a little sparse or sprinkled throughout here and there. This game doesn't do it as much as, say, the first 3. Well, okay. To be fair to Two Thrones actually, I'd say, varied out the story well enough. But with this game, it feels like, by the end of it, you're trying to remember, oh yeah, there was a plot here. That's not to say that there's not a lot of dialogue. Oh no, there's plenty here and there. It's just the story, again, doesn't feel like it has the pace to keep it there the whole time. I'm just going to, well, it's weird. Whereas with the original trilogy, I could chalk it up to it aging badly. This is not nearly as old. It is kind of disappointing that they took some stuff they learned, but it feels like they regressed on other things. And I get it, it may have to do with the fact that the reboot didn't do well, but I'd hope they'd have realized the main problems people had with the reboot. I won't talk about that since that's best saved for the reboot commentary itself. So there you go, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time collection. Are they bad games? No, absolutely not, except for Warrior Within. That is garbage. They're fun games. If you got some spare time, pop them in. But they're not exactly the masterful experiences that they were back in the day of their release. Okay, Tio, cap us off.
Yeah. Honestly, I said pretty much enough during the whole game, and the others have said enough as well. Like I said, this is fine, but not enough, at least for this version. Again, I only know the basic premise of the other version, so we'll see how much the gameplay's changed. For those, again, I'm not hoping that much for the DS version, but we'll see, I guess. It's a shame that, things have to end up like this, not with a bang, but with kind of a whimper, sorta, and Ubisoft doesn't really seem to wanting to go back to this, but perfectly okay to reinvent Assassin's Creed every year and then, so. But But well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. I guess it works better with Assassin's Creed because it sells better. But we're kind of doing the same thing that happened with this game, kind of reinventing it. The more recent games with each new year, and considering most of the teams that worked on the Silent Trilogy and this also work on the Assassin's Creed franchise, I'm not too surprised, but we'll see. Um, However, as for the story for this HD version, you can put as much pathos as you want, and while I like the lore building with the genes and everything, it's pointless, like I said. It gets retconned after World Within anyway, so what's even the point to know about things like this? The making a interquel story, with within a game series, of which in an installment that happens after this game, for example, a game set in this particular piece of a timeline, that in the game after this, a huge event happens that changes the status quo this radically. You'd think that it would make an event, the story of this interquel, this prequel to that middle game, fitting enough for it to not just to stand on its own, but to stand despite this event that happens later. But no, because everything gets changed once Kairina goes back in time, then goes forward, in time, and Ahaka gets destroyed. So technically speaking, the battle never happened. Malik never got corrupted and probably still alive.
Yay!
And Razia is still alive, probably still in her temple, with the portals in the capital. Who knows? But she hasn't met the princess, so it's like Farah, back to square one.
It's like they made this game just to get retconned.
It's kind of like Sonic 06 in a way when you think about it. Except that at least the plot is not insulting you and less interspecies romance. But still, again, if they wanted to sell this game as a complete product, they really should have worked on the story, or better yet, have it not being an interquel. Again, the Wii and DS versions seem, from what we heard, to take that idea and being said after the Two Thrones. So we'll see, I guess. But on that note, we'll eventually come back to the other versions of this game and check it out in a second. But for the time being, it's time, finally, to get on the reboot. And we're bringing Shiro in so we can have the perspective of someone who's completely new to the franchise. But trust me, it won't change much because spoilers alert, it kind of sucks. So see you for that.
Kinda, he says.
See ya.
See you then.
Sure.